Daniel chapter 1, verse 8. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's delicacy, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the chief of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Father, we just thank you right now for this divine time, God. We thank you for just this opportunity to hear your word, God. We thank you for your presence being here, dear Lord. So we just ask right now, God, that you just continue to soften our hearts, God. Tender our hearts, God, for the word that is coming forth, dear Lord. It is all from you, God. Everything that is flowing from my mouth is directly from your mouth to my ears, dear Lord, and I am speaking what you have instructed, dear Lord. So I just pray right now, God, that we receive your word, God, with the open spirit, with the open heart, God, the right attitude, your attitude, because we know, oh God, that it is going to make us stronger, and it's going to make us better for you, oh God. We thank you right now, give you praise, honor, and glory. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I'll go ahead and be seated. So I don't know why I closed my Bible, but that's okay. So we're in the book of Daniel, chapter 1, and we're reading verse 8. So the quick backdrop, the background of this is right here, Daniel, along with Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, also known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were taken to Babylon as captives by King Nebuchadnezzar. So they were young men who were devoted to God and his laws. Okay, so I'm just giving you the background. And in this here, the first chapter of Daniel, it tells about how the king wanted to provide daily to them his delicacies, which is food, while they trained for 3 years in order to serve him. So they had to go through preparation. They had to go through training in order to serve him. And part of the training was they get to eat of the king's delicacies. So now here's the thing. The king, he wasn't serving up no slop. Right? You know, he was serving up the best foods because, hello, he was a king. So the king is not going to just give you something that he just, put together. It's going to be the finest. Now, but this is not why Daniel refused the king's delicacy. The king was Babylonian, which meant he wasn't following the dietary laws that God instructed for his children. Okay, so that's the backdrop, and I'll talk about that a little more. So just kind of keep that floating around in your mind. But in dealing with this verse right here, I have a love-hate relationship with chocolate ice cream. Okay, and I'm going somewhere with this. It loved me when I was younger, but now it hates me, and I'm so mad about that. As we grow older, many of us experience changes in our body, which includes not being able to digest those pleasurable delicacies as when we were younger. Okay? Here's the thing. We have become intolerable to that which was once tolerable.
Come on, talk.
So now, if you're taking notes or whatever, our focus for today and our title of the message is Intolerant to Sin.
Jesus.
Intolerant to sin. Intolerant to sin. Okay? Intolerant means unable or unwilling to tolerate or endure. Unable to fully digest or absorb a specified food or drug. Yes. So now then in the definition of intolerant, tolerate is in there. So I'm going to break that down. Tolerate means to allow the existence, presence, practice, or act of without prohibition or hindrance or permit. So the first one, to allow the existence, presence, practice, or act of without prohibition or hindrance. Permit. The next one, to endure without repugnance. To put up with. I hope y'all track with me, because God is doing something right here.
Yeah.
So now, a lot of times, many of us have food intolerance. Okay? Now there's a difference from a food allergy.
Right.
This is because food intolerance has to do with digestive problems, whereas food allergy affects the immune system. So now, in the natural, if someone, how many of you know whether you are or you aren't, or know someone who's lactose intolerant? So when you're right, and as you grow older, sometimes you become lactose intolerant. Lactose intolerance, the decreased ability to digest lactose, a sugar found in milk or products. So I'm going to talk about this briefly, because there's something that we do in the natural that we should not do in the spiritual. Okay, there's something that we do in the natural that we should not do in the spiritual. Some symptoms of food intolerance, like being lactose intolerant, include abdominal pain, gas, bloating, and or nausea. So now, if you are lactose intolerant, there are now alternatives or aids so that you can take so that you can enjoy the above mentioned symptoms, right? There's lactate milk. There's lactose-free ice cream.
Yeah.
Could never get with that one. There's even lactate pills. Now here's the thing. That's cool in the natural. That's cool in the natural, but guess what? That will not fly in the spiritual.
There it is.
That will not fly in the spiritual. And it all comes down to compromise.
Come on.
It all boils down to compromise. There's no such thing as a sin aid pill we should take to help us tolerate sin.
Wow.
Oh shit.
Wow.
Like seriously, there's no such thing as a sin aid pill to help us tolerate sin. We should be unwilling to tolerate or endure sin as we mature and get strong in our walk with God. As we get strong and as we get mature and deeper in our relationship with God, we should be unwilling to tolerate and endure sin.
Yeah,
right. You know I got scripture. Y'all was wondering, but you know I got it. Hebrews, and y'all can turn there, but I'm gonna read it from the Amplified. Hebrews chapter 5, verses 13 and 14. I'll wait while y'all turn there. Amen.
Teach.
Hebrews chapter 5, verse 13 and 14. I'm going to read it from the Amplified, but you definitely want to write this scripture down. For everyone who lives on milk is doctrinally inexperienced and unskilled in the word of righteousness, since he is a spiritual infant. But solid food is for the spiritually mature, whose senses are trained by practice to distinguish between what is morally good and what is evil. Okay? So like I just mentioned, we should be unwilling to tolerate and endure sin as we mature. When we get deeper in relationship and stronger in word, the more we learn about God, it's like, why would you want to keep tolerating that which God cannot tolerate? As you get closer in your relationship with him, and as you understand, you say, you know what? Oh, God can't tolerate that, so why should I? Because remember, we are made in the image of God. So because we are made in his image, everything that he does, everything that he says, we are his reflection. We are to do that as well. So as we get closer and deeper and learn more about his character, we should be like, wait a minute. Why am I tolerating that and God can't tolerate it? That's something ain't right there. God is holy. He's blameless. He's perfect. It's lately I've kind of been feeling this way, and I don't understand it, but I mean I do. But sin should agitate us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It should disturb us.
Yeah.
It should perturb us. Now, I'm not saying sinners.
Right.
I'm not saying sinners. The act, the sin for us, sin. It should agitate us. Whatever the sin is, we shouldn't be able to sit there and be like, No, it should agitate us and disturb us.
Yeah.
We are striving for that which God is. Just like I said. So why do we keep putting up with things that are a turn off to God? And why do we allow? Why do we participate in the gossip at work? Why do we participate in even, and this is the thing, even if we don't say anything back, being in the midst of that gossip and listening and everything, we're still participating. Another thing, sharing inappropriate pictures or posts on social media. We, as believers, as children of God, we should be cognizant because people are watching us. We always say the streets are watching, and sometimes we are the only Bible, the only Jesus that people see. So if we're sharing inappropriate pictures on social media like Facebook or something, and then we want to talk about it, today at church, we're like, church, you was posting up pictures of half-naked men, half-naked girls. What was that about?
Well,
we have to think about it. And this one right here, it may hurt, but it's defiling God's temple. Cursing, smoking, drinking, putting things into God's temple that defile Him. Those things are a turnoff. Why do we keep putting up with those things that He cannot tolerate? And that's just something. And when we do this, we're toting the line. It's like we're kind of at the line, like there's this, and this is funny because God showed this to me, and I was like, yeah, that's right. There's things that we know that He doesn't gel with.
Yeah.
Anger, unforgiveness, bitterness. Jesus, remove the anger, remove the bitterness. Yes, God, heal me from. God, take away this unforgiveness. But we laugh at the crude jokes of a coworker. It's as we grow in intimacy with Christ, we learn to distinguish between what is morally good and what is evil. Now, laughing at the joke, the crude joke, isn't evil, but how is God getting glory from it? How is God getting glory from that? And that's what we always have to ask ourselves. Because we were created, one of the reasons that we were created is to bring God glory, to give God glory, so people can see the gloriousness, if that is a word, of God. So if someone knows, that's Sister so-and-so, she always at church, I heard she be praying, but why is she over there with them laughing at the crude sex jokes with the co-workers and all that stuff? I thought she's supposed to be a Christian. She's not telling the jokes, but she's sure him and hawing right with them. How is God getting the glory from that? Because there's going to be a time when you're going to have to minister to that person and be like, you can't tell me nothing. You were laughing about this and about that. So it's like you always have to think, how is God getting the glory from that? As children of God, we have a different set of rules to live by.
Okay.
We have a different set of rules to live by. And the funny thing is, many people say that, I can't be a Christian because y'all got too many rules and your God is too strict but to be honest, that comes from those who haven't taken the time to deepen their relationship with God.
Come on now.
Because if you understand and if you take the time to get that intimacy and that relationship and learn the principles and the teachings, you'll understand those rules are for our good.
Yes.
We learn the rules and instructions.
Amen.
And because of that, so it's like God teaches we are to always pray. Why? Because there's temptation around every corner. So we are to always be prayed up. And then God says, all right, you know what? Don't make that right. Do not make that right. Keep going straight, because He knows what happens when you make the right. Also, our spiritual armor. So it's like we know that the warfare, the battle that we're fighting is not a physical, it's not natural, it is spiritual. So therefore, because we are fighting a spiritual battle, we know that we can't come in there with guns and knives and spears and javelins. We have to come with prayer, we have to come with fasting, we have to come with consecrating. And how do we know that? In the Word.
Yes.
In the Word. So the Word, if you want to say, are the rules, but the rules are for our good.
Yes.
And when they have, there's benefits, there's rewards when we don't quote unquote break the rules. If we continue, living a life that is obedient, walking in obedience to God. Oh my goodness, the wonderful, beautiful things. And the perfect example is with Daniel. With Daniel. Looking at this, our focal verse in the Voice translation, Daniel 1:8, in the Voice translation. Although the king only ate the finest Babylonian fare, Daniel was determined not to violate God's law and defile himself by eating the food and drinking the wine that came from the king's table. So he asked the chief of the royal eunuchs for permission not to eat the food. So now, I mentioned before that the king, he ate well because of course he's the king, But according to what was required of Daniel of God, he couldn't eat that food because, and if you want to write this verse down, it's Leviticus 11 verses 1 through 47. That's talking about the law of cleanliness and holiness. That's Leviticus 11 verses 1 through 47. That's pretty much talking about what foods are clean and what foods are unclean. And that's why Daniel was like, okay, you know what, King, I'm sorry, I can't. He's like, I can't eat because that's going to defile, my body. That's one of the things that God said that I can't have. And I'm, no disrespect to you, but I'm trying to, roll with God. Yes. So here's a thought to ponder, and this was an ouch. If I step on your toes, how many times do we tolerate sin because we don't want to offend someone?
A lot.
I meant to tell y'all not to answer, but that's all right. But no, but seriously, how many? And that's something to think about. See, you see how quick y'all actually maybe. All right. You see how quick we answered that?
Yeah. That's like
because we know we don't want to offend someone, so we tolerate their sin. We don't want to seem all goody goody or too holy. We don't want to seem goody goody or too holy. It's like and this is something that a lot of us may not want to have as reality, but we still have that inkling that we need validation from man. Because we don't want to offend, and people may think we're goody good. We kind of want to have that validation, like, oh no, I'm not a holy roller, I'm not too holy, so therefore we tolerate the sin because we don't want to offend them.
Oh wow!
But now here's the thing: it's one thing when you don't know.
Okay.
But when you do know and you tolerate it, that's another level. And that correlates back to the Hebrews 5:13 and 14. It's basically spiritually immaturity versus spiritual maturity. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty and that's just something to think about. Just think about, like, how many times do I tolerate someone's sin because I don't want to offend them? Yeah. Because they'll call me, oh, she good. I know what she's, that Jesus girl, that holy roller. Be like, you know what? And what's wrong with being labeled that? Like, I love serving God. He's like so cool. And I mean, why are we the only ones like ashamed almost to be Christian? Why are we the ones who kind of like, oh man, go to church? Where every other religion, they walk around, it's like, and they know, they're like, yeah, I pray 5 times a day. I do this, and put a blessing on. But we're like, God bless you. It's like if you see another believer, you be like, no, why? You're like, hey, praise it. Just something to think about. So now, there's always consequences to our actions. Okay? There's always consequences to our actions. Now, consequences are the effect, result, or outcome of something occurring earlier. Now, a lot of times people always think consequences are bad. Consequences are just consequences. Depending on the action, the outcome is either good or bad. So now, back to, let me just tell you the natural consequence for when you're lactose intolerant. And the consequence of consuming something that you shouldn't. In the natural, 30 minutes to 2 hours of consumption, you get the stomach pain. You get the gas, you get the bloating, you get the nausea. And now here's the thing. Most times, that deters us from ever having lactose again. I said most times because there are some people who do want to do it again. That most times, because they're like, you know what? If I have this bowl of ice cream in 30 minutes, I'm gonna be gassing up the car because you know what I'm saying. So that right there, in the stomach pains, you think you'd be like, is it really worth it? Now here's the thing: in the spiritual,
come on.
What's the consequences?
What's the consequences?
Guilt.
Yes.
Shame. Regret. Fear. And then you say to yourself, was the consumption really worth it? Was it really worth it? Because in that momentary pleasure, whether it was 15 minutes, whether it's 2 hours later, that guilt comes. That shame comes. That regret comes. Then you're like, was it really worth it? Galatians chapter 5, verse 9. Galatians chapter 5, verse 9. We're still talking about the consequence of consumption in correlation to being intolerant to sin. Galatians 5, verse 9. It's up on the screen, but I'm actually going to read it from the Voice translation because I just love how the different translations kind of just like pack the power punch. You know what they say? Just a little yeast causes all the dough to rise. So even the slightest detour from the truth will take you to a destination you do not desire.
Yeah. Oh.
Is that the result you want?
Oh,
like thinking about it. Do we want a little tolerance of sin in our life to take us someplace we don't want to go? It's a heavy question. But now I mentioned briefly before about being a Jesus freak or Jesus zealot, and there a lot of times people give them a bad rap. Just someone who was just like so about asking God everything. And when I say this, like, God, what color shirt do I wear today? Some people will be like, who cares? It's a shirt. But if you really want to wear a red shirt and God is like, no, wear the blue shirt. God has a reason for you to wear the blue shirt. And so you like, okay, God, I really wanted to wear the red shirt, but I'm going to be obedient and I'm going to put on the blue shirt. And then, you see whatever happens from, you wearing the blue shirt. But now here's the thing. What if you be like, but God, I really want to wear the red shirt, so I'm wearing the red shirt. You put on the red shirt, it's something totally opposite of what God had in store for you happens. And I know that's like, something minute or whatever, but that's how it is when the little leaven, the little yeast is destroying, and it's like tolerating that little bit of sin, taking you someplace you don't want to go. You don't know where wearing that red shirt is going to take you. And because it's out of your own pride or whatever, who knows where it's going to lead you. But if you say, okay, God, I don't want to wear the blue shirt, but you're telling me to, so therefore, because you are instructing me, I know that you're guiding me, so wherever you're taking me with this, I'm cool. Because we know God's not going to take us down a road of destruction. Right. Basically, obedience is better than sacrifice.
That's right.
Obedience is better than sacrifice. And that's 1 Samuel 15:22. Obedience is better then sacrifice. He's like, okay, God, all right, fine, I'll wear the blue shirt, and then just something marvelous, spectacular happens. You're like, oh, all right, and then as you say, okay, God, you know what? That draws you closer to Him to say, okay, God, all right. So tomorrow, what color shirt should I wear? Then you start. It opens your eyes to be like, oh, okay, well, I wanted to do that, but God told me to do this, and I went with what He said, and look at the results. So now I'm like, all right, God, look, should I wear pants tomorrow? Should I wear jeans? I mean, and then you really start to, so that's when it comes like to really, when I was saying about the Jesus freaks, and I used to, call those people, I'm like, oh, she a Jesus freak, but guess what? Now I'm one of those Jesus freaks. I'd be like, God, should I, go straight and get right to the church, or should I go around Robin's barn that's going to take me an extra 15 minutes, but, you know what I'm saying? So now it's like, you get to the point now where you're like, all right, God, just instruct me. Whatever, it may not make sense to me, but you telling me to do it, so that's what I'm going to do.
Amen.
So now,
This word is good.
the result of intolerance. God, there we go. God honored Daniel's stand. Okay, and that's always the best thing. When God approves, when God is like, kudos. That's you like.
Amen.
Bunk everybody else. I love saying that word. Anyway, but you just be like, if God honored Daniel's stand. So now going back to our focal text, Daniel 1. So verses 9 through 16. Daniel 1, verses 9 through 16. And this is the result of, how God honored Daniel's stand. Amen. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and goodwill of the chief of eunuchs. And the chief of eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear the Lord King. I fear my Lord the King, who has appointed your food and drink. For why should he see your faces looking worse than the young men who are your age? Then you would endanger my head before the king. So Daniel said to the steward, whom the chief of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days, and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearance be examined before you, and the appearance of the young men who eat the portion of the king's delicacies, and as you see fit, so deal with your servants. So he consented with them in this manner and tested them 10 days. And in the end of their 10 days, their features appeared better and fatter in flesh than all the young men who had eaten the portion of the king's delicacies. Thus the steward took away their portion of delicacies and the wine that they were to drink, and gave them vegetables. That is powerful right there. So now, one thing that God just bam, boom, pat with me. In verse 10, the eunuch feared his king. Daniel feared his king.
Amen.
Okay, but now here's the thing. There's two different fears. So the eunuch, he was afraid of his king, because you can see, if he sees that y'all look, sickly because you don't eat, he's gonna have my head. So he had a fear for his life. He was afraid, but Daniel had a reverential fear. He had a fear.
Okay.
So there was two servants, the eunuch and Daniel. There were two kings, Nebuchadnezzar and King of Kings, and two types of fear: afraid of and reverence. So that was just something that God was just, he pointed that out to me, and it's powerful when it's the same word but two different definitions and two different meanings. So the eunuch, he feared his king, but Daniel was like, no, my king is above all kings, so I have no fear of that. Amen.
Right. Amen.
So now the king, and this is kind of cool here. The king, he had a good offer, right? I mean, like I mentioned before, he was a king, so he wouldn't just have a biscuit and whatever. He would have whatever you consider the finest dining experience or whatever, multiply that. And that's what the king would be offering. So he had, probably had a great, palate to selection. But here's the thing. It was nothing compared to what God offers. It was nothing compared. Now this is the John right here. Daniel didn't even hesitate one moment. Do you get that? Do you get that? When you were Daniel, he didn't even hesitate one moment. He didn't consider accepting what the king had to offer.
Come with it.
Now, he didn't sample the menu first. He didn't even look at it.
Sure.
He didn't even say, what the king got there? He didn't. He was just like, no. The instruction was given, said, okay, this is as part of the training, you get the king's delicacy. He was like, I'm not even trying to look to see. He didn't even give it. You know why? Because he considered the source and he knew it wasn't in line with God. Amen. He considered, he said, you know what? Yeah, I know this king is great. But guess what? No. What he's going to serve me for the next 3 years, because that was part of their training, the next 3 years, I'm not trying to defile myself for 3 years. He said, consider the source. So he knew, because the king, was a Babylonian, he wasn't a child of, one of the children of Israel. He knew, okay, well, he's not going to serve me things that fill the requirement of Leviticus 11:1-47. He's going to, give me the stuff that I'm not supposed to, or I'm not supposed to eat. Yeah. So he considered the source, and that's what we have to do. We have to consider the source. Are you being presented with or asked to do something that's in line with God's will or will bring him glory? Consider the source. Or will you have to compromise your beliefs because you don't want to offend the person?
Jesus.
Are you being presented? Consider the source. Are you being presented with or asked to do something that is in line with God's will and will bring him glory? Or will you have to compromise your beliefs because you don't want to offend the person? So now here's the thing. God gave Daniel favor with the eunuch so no offense could be taken.
Jesus.
If Daniel did not have favor with the eunuch, Daniel probably would have got killed. Because in those days, to refuse anything that the king is offering, is given, who are you? Get out of here. So because he was going to be there for 3 years and train, and God was like, you know what? Let me give you a little bit of faith, and let me show my glory through you for 10 days. So for 10 days, Daniel was like, okay, just we'll keep it on the low. Okay, you don't have to, your king doesn't have to know. It's not like we're doing anything shady. It's not like we're trying to, plan treason or trying to undermine him. I'm just trying to show you, look, this is the life that I live. This is how I live. I can't eat that. Let me show you that, the way I eat is going to be okay, while I'm here. So that was the favor. When you take a stand, God gives you favor with those who could be offended. God gives you favor. And the awesome thing is, in reading towards the end, for the 3 years, as for the 4 men, Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys, God gave them knowledge and skill in all literature and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Now, that was just from eating vegetables and drinking water in those 3 years. And the scripture was saying that they were fatter than the guys who were eating the king's delicacies. So that right there is showing God's power. And it's all because Daniel was like, he didn't accept what the king had to offer. Now here's the thing. It just boils down, and I said it boils down to, before to compromise, but there's no pill. I said it before, there's no pill that we can take to help us tolerate sin. Why should we even need help tolerating sin? It should just be intolerable, period. We shouldn't We should not be willing to tolerate sin or anything. We must stop tolerating that which God cannot tolerate. As we draw closer to Him, as we get more in depth in our walk, in our relationship, in reading and studying, we should be like, okay, God, that action, I'm sorry. That, okay.
Yeah.
As opposed to be like, well, yeah, I'm just, keep serving and keep, no. If we are truly walking and living and trying to be witnesses out there to everyone we come in contact with, we shouldn't be living a double life, so to speak. We shouldn't say, okay, you know what? Well, no one's going to see. God, we cannot tolerate what God does not tolerate. That's pretty much what it boils down to. And I know that this was a tough word. This was a tough word, but it's a word that we all need to hear and really need to just meditate on and just kind of just let it sink in, because as God takes us to new levels, as God takes us to deeper walks and relationships with Him, there's a lot of stuff that we can't bring with us, because He's a holy God, because He's a perfect God, because He's a righteous God. There's things that He's like, I'm sorry, I can't, because you got that one. So I pray that you just really ponder and think on this message through the week as we all, and just ask God, be like, ask God, hey God, what is it that I'm tolerating that I shouldn't tolerate? Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Let's go ahead and pray. Father, I just thank you for this word. I thank you, dear Lord, for just how you have spoken to us today. I pray right now, God, that throughout this week, God, that we really meditate and we seek you and seek answers, God, and seek understanding from you on things that we may be tolerating, whether it's in our lives, our personal us, or around us, God, that we know that is offensive to you, God. Regardless, we, no longer are we worried about, not offending man, God. We don't want to do anything. We don't want to see anything that's going to be offensive to you, God. So I just ask that you all just just truly allow us right now, God, to think throughout the week, God, and just clearly hear you, God, for an instruction on how to become intolerant to the sin in our lives and around us, God. We thank you right now. In Jesus' name.